Welcome to Elder Care Illuminated, Torchlight's caregiving podcast. Elder Care Illuminated addresses the ins and outs and ups and downs of caring for your loved ones. Join us for interesting conversations with elder care specialists, geriatric care managers, attorneys, and ordinary people with extraordinary caregiving experiences.
Hello, care partners. Welcome to Elder Care Illuminated. Today is very special for me and for Torchlight because we have the opportunity to talk to Teepa Snow. Teepa is a nationally recognized leader in excellence for caring with individuals with dementia. Her organization, Positive Approach to Care, was founded in 2005. It is dedicated to teaching families and professionals all over the world how to care for individuals with a dementia diagnosis in a way that recognizes the person and their abilities in the context of who they are at the time. Welcome, Teepa.
Well, it's great to be with you, and thanks for doing this for everyone.
Teepa, you have a paradigm, GEMS, for thinking about how a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease changes how a person engages with the world over time. I first saw your GEMS construct in 2016, but I didn't really get it. Now that I have cared for my own mom through the final stages of Alzheimer's, I guess she became a pearl. Yes. I do. And I wish I had that framework to begin to understand when we started this process. Is this a good place for our conversation to start?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, the idea of seeing people as precious and unique and needing the right setting and the right care took a while to develop. So it's not like a surprise that people have a hard time wrapping their head around it to start with. But I think it's a really important way of looking at what you're confronted with, because otherwise it's easy to get lost in the loss.
Absolutely. And what I especially liked about it is that it gives people a framework of, well, what can you expect as things change? Because they do change. Is that framework is available on your website, right?
It absolutely is. And really, I developed it because I refuse to simply look at global deterioration as the only thing I can see when I look at someone that I'm going to care with and for and around. If all I notice is their deterioration, it's pretty grim. And this is hard. And I'm not saying it isn't because I've done it personally. But I'd say if all we're seeing is what's lost and what they can't do anymore, it robs us of the ability to be present in a moment and realize, oh, she still does see some. She knows me, but she doesn't know who I am to her. You know, she sees the objects, but she doesn't know how to use them. She's moving. And at first it just seems it's random. It's like, no, she's looking for something to do. So if I could find something. And then finally, when she can't move, an acknowledgement of, oh, we're getting very close to the end of this journey. And this shell is really ugly, but who's in there is still precious.
I think that's awesome. And we will have a link to your website so that listeners can go check it out for themselves. And I think that recognizing the positive, and this is not a Pollyanna sort of affair, but it is when I watched with my own mom, who was, I say this fondly, was a battle axe. She was a much more playful and joyous person as she moved along in her dementia, which was completely unexpected and kind of a fun thing.
So for someone like your mom, it's pretty common, like the early stages or parts of the disease are really tough because she's like a diamond. I mean, she can cut you and she's clear enough to be mean sometimes. Knew what she wanted. Right. But boy, did she not realize what she couldn't do anymore. It's just like, really? Mom, this is, but if you try to argue with her, all you do is get cut. She's still your mom.
So you have brought us to one of the things that's so hard for families and for professionals, and it killed me to see professionals behaving in this way. It's the impulse to correct the person they're dealing with. And I read in one of your pieces something that you called putting your agenda in your back pocket.
Know your agenda, don't show it. Because invariably the person that you're trying to help might have an agenda of their own. And if I want to figure out whether this is going to work, I got to hear at least what their agenda is. So I'll know where they're coming from. So when somebody tells me something, so I say, you know what, how about I drive this time? And they go, why can't I drive? Then I need to pause and realize, I just offended her. Now, it was perfectly logical that I'm not just driving this time, I'm driving forevermore because remember, you lost your license. The doctor said no more. But me bringing that up, my agenda isn't going to help until I hear, so you were planning on driving. Oh, I'm sorry. I had planned to drive because I thought, I am so sorry because I just made plans and I have the car and everything. So how about if I do it this time and then we can figure out next time? Now, notice I didn't say you can drive next time. I said, we'll figure it out next time, which means I'm going to go through this again and again and again until she decides finally to let go of driving.
Yeah, which will happen.
Yeah.
It will happen. But you have not set up this antagonistic, well, you can't drive, and put them back in a pain place. Yeah. And of course, the ways that you communicate with someone with dementia include much more than the words that we use: tone of voice, volume, gestures, how we touch the person we're engaged with. Do you actually train? Do you talk about all of those things?
Absolutely, because people tend to take license when somebody develops dementia, and we start treating them as though we get the right to put our hands on. We have the right to tell them some things. We are the authority figures, and it's like, whoa. I use the phrase, I have to seek your permission because I'm here to support and help you. And it's still your body. It's still your life. And that's particularly hard when it's a family member and it feels like I'm already giving up a lot to do this thing. But if I don't back up and remember, I have to get permission. And getting permission means what I'll need to do is get visual permission to interact with you, get verbal permission to interact with you, and then finally get physical permission to actually put our bodies together. So I try to help people figure out how to do this by doing training exercises that get them out of their comfort zone. So I'll say, okay, so turn to your partner and close your eyes. And one of you is just going to fix the person's hair. Now you're going to adjust their clothing. Now, how many of you are noticing that you're getting anxious and nervous? And it's like, because you don't know what's coming next. So the rules of engagement are people need to make eye contact. You need to greet. You need to offer your hand to the person in just a handshake first or a hug, see what they feel about that. And after you do that, then you start figuring out, well, what can we do together? Oh, take a look. Your hair's got something up here on your hair, and you touch your own hair. And then you might even say, may I? Or here, tell you what, reach up. There you go. You got it. Nice. That looks better. Yeah, I don't know what you got. Just had something there. It was called you never brushed your hair this morning. That's what's called. But helping people realize there's a whole new set of skills you're going to need here. And you can't just use a previous relationship thinking that's going to get you through this, because that's not how you're behaving. You get something that I may or may not pick up on.
When my mom was in one care facility, and she had some very good care also, so I don't want to put that out there, that everything was bad. She had some very good caregivers, and I remember one young woman, and when she did my mom's hair, my mom then wanted to do her hair, and she was such a sweetie. She had long hair, and my mom wanted to braid her hair. Yep. In a not so good braid, but gosh, she sat down and said, okay, it's your turn. You can braid my hair now.
Yeah. And the really wonderful part about that is that young woman got the idea of we're partners in this. And I did my agenda, and now you want to do yours. And it's like, okay, that's great. I'd love to have my hair braided. And I'm one of those people that hates people to mess with my hair. So for me, that's like, it's a gift, and I'll give it back because I know you don't like yours messed with either. So, even up.
For many people with Alzheimer's and other dementias, the arc of the day, the time spent from waking until bedtime, that was a Freudian slip, I guess, seems
I think it is.
Emptiness. And that waiting and often waiting for the next meal, where you go into a nursing home and you see people lined up at 11 o'clock, waiting for 12 o'clock to come around. But with some creativity and effort, caregivers can provide activities that actually engage a person in something meaningful at almost all the stages of the disease. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, so I like to talk in fives because we have 5 fingers, and sort of that helps us wrap our head, and we can usually hold on to 5 things at a time in working memory. So I group things into fives because we can hold on to 5 and we can let go of 1 at a time. So for me, the 5 things that we could think about doing, number 1 is music. And it's special, and that's the thumb, because music is that thing, rhythm. So that just using music, wow, there's dancing, there's clapping, there's remembering, there's, do you remember this one? Playmate, come out and play with me. And then for some people, especially young or older women, and were once younger women, then if I do, you can hear my hands clapping, and suddenly it calls up that game that we used to play when we were little girls, where we clap with somebody else, and then that whole thing brings joy, and then we go to another song and another song. So music, to me, whether it's dancing or humming or doing a faith-based thing, music is that, ooh, yeah, that's a go-to, and it changes mood so quickly, and it can actually improve speech for a little bit.
It's amazing how many people who seem to have very little capacity know all the words to all the songs. One thing that I noticed, and I hope some of the listeners that we have with us over time here are some of the professionals. Sometimes the people that are in your group don't have the same cultural identification. And we were once sitting around, and I did a lot of singing with my mom when I would go visit her and other people there. And I knew that one of the ladies in the group was Canadian. And it just occurred to me, well, why don't we try the Canadian national anthem? Because we've sung My Country 'Tis of Thee 4 times now. And this woman brightened up, turned on. It was like, whoa, wait a minute. So really knowing your person.
Knowing their background. And so, music, when we go back to music, it's songs of childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood that are really powerful and really connect and are so solidly embedded in our fiber. So knowing who people are and what their songs were. So, but you have to also be tuned in. Sometimes you can trigger something you didn't know about because there is a story in the back door. But just, it doesn't mean you never sing the song. It just means tune in and pay attention, because you may have gotten an emotional reaction. For me, had a lady and we sang Amazing Grace. And all of a sudden she got really sad and really quiet and really distant. And then she said, "Where's Billy? Did he die?" And it was because, of course, as in most Presbyterian families, they played Amazing Grace at everybody's passing. And for her, it triggered the memory of losing Billy. And, Billy was her dog. And so it brought back this memory. So it was like just a moment. It's like, I think Billy did. Now, you and Billy, tell me about some of the stuff you did when Billy was around. Because she was clearly aware Billy had passed. And she wasn't checking in, but she thought he had gone. And that's how I found out he was a dog. I thought it was going to be a person. But, in the music, she got Billy back, but then she remembered his passing, but then we got to a better place. So the second that connects to music is conversation. Be willing to spend just, look at that. Wow. And have things to look at or listen to, and then work from that moment, whatever they give you, those words they bring, work from those words, that acknowledgement.
So that's 2 things.
That's 2. So our third is animals, because it turns out people have feelings and memories about animals one way or the other. So if there's a possibility of pets or dogs, cats, but even birds are amazing. So birds and bird song change everybody. So the exposure, going someplace where you can watch birds or listen to birds or feed the birds, going out to the bird feeder and just watching the birds for a little bit. That is an activity. Now, again, I could set you up so you can watch birds and then I can check in, because maybe my day is much more filled than your day,
Sure.
But doing those connections back and forth. So doing your verbal connections and then allowing the person to watch the birds, and then, is that one a cardinal or something else? They're the red ones are cardinals, right? Yeah. Oh, look at him. He's feisty, eh? So that idea of making comments and pointing with your finger so the person can look where you look. So that's 3. And then the 4th has to do with things that you can smell or taste or touch. So objects that have different characteristics to them. So my hands and my eyes and my nose and even my mouth might engage. And I need to know my person, just as you've said before, but using objects to do things with somebody, they don't have to be fancy and it doesn't have to be high-techy, but I need to think, which sensations do I want to stimulate? What are they good at? What do they seem to enjoy? What are they skilled at? What are they interested in? What have they shown me before? Can it be something that can be crumpled up? Well, I will take in a newspaper and we'll rip newspaper. And it's actually like, just tearing long strips of newspaper. And then, I may do something with it that they get to watch, but sometimes we do paper mache. Sometimes we just rip newspaper. Sometimes we ball it up and throw it. But you don't have to have a lot of money. You just have a desire. And then sometimes I'll bring in flowers. And sometimes I'll print out off the computer on cardstock a picture of a flower and then cut it up. And then we can put it together like a puzzle. Only if the puzzle pieces get lost, I just print it out again.
And who cares?
Who cares? Yeah, really, that idea of who does care? And it's like, well, we don't need to care about that stuff so much. And then the last one is plants. I mean, truly the world around us, that outdoor world. But if you can't go out, maybe a plant of some sort, the ground, the earth, growing things, watering things, taking food, like for instance, lettuce and shredding lettuce. So, the idea of plants, they can be very varied, but the idea of something that is of the world and to bring us together with that. So those are my 5 go-tos.
Those are really interesting. And I notice also if you're shredding lettuce, it doesn't matter if someone puts it in their mouth because it's lettuce. Some things, like I would bring things out for my mom to do and then realize very quickly. We did a lot of sorting. Sorting marbles was a great idea until they're small. They look like you could eat them. They look like a nice hard candy. Maybe we're not going to sort marbles.
Maybe not. Let's try poker chips. They're bigger.
Yes. So you're obviously very creative ideas, and the who cares is very important because, shredding up and crumpling newspapers. My mom loved to throw stuff. And so crumpled newspapers, that's good. You're not going to break anything. And she would have had a ball doing that. And she would have, she wanted to be naughty. Like this was, the fun of it was being naughty.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if you do newspaper vertically, it tears, like it has a great sound to it. It actually tears along the grain. And so you get this, what's really wonderful from a health perspective is it tends to get people to sit up taller so they can pull apart with their arms. And so all of a sudden I'm getting an arm span. Instead of sitting crouched down in the wheelchair, people are up and pulling things apart, taking things apart. So I'll, take one of those noodles that you have for the pool and I cut it into little donuts. And then I'll take a clean toilet plunger and plop it in front of the person and then have them stack the noodles of the donuts on there.
That's brilliant.
It's stuff to do. It's like taking soup cans and say, hey, could you put these on the shelf for me? It's a combination of giving people purpose, but also getting them to do something rather than simply sit. And it uses their eyes and their hands and their bodies. And suddenly they're engaged. And they also get you did fantastic. Oh, my heavens, thank you. That was so helpful. You're wonderful. May I have a hug? Again, always the permission. May I have a hug? And you show them the open arms and you are terrific. Because I think the other magic when you close your hand, pat yourself, is us. That thing that all these things come from is us. That's how we engage people. We have to be willing to give of us.
And it feels good on both sides. I think
it sure
that's really
does.
It's instead of being frustrated with the person that you're working with, you feel good because you can see what's happening with them. Talking about purpose, this is something that affects people with and without dementia. And my grandmother lived to be 96 and did not develop any kind of dementia. She beat me at Scrabble 3 weeks before she died. But she often... Yeah, well, for many years, she would say, why am I here? What is there for me to do?
You're wondering why you're still here. Yeah. I wish I had the answer, but I can tell you, for one person, you make my life better. And boy, am I glad you are.
And that's a wonderful kind of answer to give people. And some of the things that you are talking about, the activities that may seem like they're busy work, but they're not. They're helping give someone purpose. Here is a sort of odd question. Most of the people, or many of the people in nursing homes or in memory care, are going to be women, and they are going to maybe be happy folding things and putting away cans. And men, is there any special way to think about the men who are in this position?
So one of my very early projects, because these guys were just so bored, I said, hey guys, could you do me a huge favor? Now I did have to get an agreement from everybody in the building first, because let me just tell you, they were like, I think this is a bad idea. And I said, I know, but will you do it anyway? And they said, well, I mean, if you take responsibility for when it doesn't go well. I said, okay, I'll take responsibility. That'll be fine. They came out, 3/4 of them were in wheelchairs. They were grumpy old guys. I had to talk them into it. They were going to help me. I was going to wash cars, but I needed some input, and I needed to change the windshield wipers, and I needed some input. And I was going to mess with the battery, but I needed some input. And so these guys are out there. We're out, and I'm washing a car. And before very long, 3 of them are up out of their wheelchairs, showing me the right way to wash a car. And then they're all up telling me what to do. And then they said, now this other car. And so then the staff are bringing their car over so we can wash cars. So we had a car wash in the parking lot where some of the guys just supervised, but a lot of the guys who wouldn't go to PT or do exercise were working real hard to wash cars. And we donated, quote unquote, the money, because we earned some money because everybody gave us $5. We donated it to get gifts for people who were in the building who didn't have anybody to bring them.
I totally love that. Even though we have stereotyped men as being interested in cars,
these guys were all about it, and it was part of that, I think, was getting out of the building. Because
you knew your audience.
Yeah, but, and being with guys and supervising and telling a girl what to do. That's one thing. So I also I've helped create men caves where the ladies aren't supposed to actually be hanging out in there, just the guys. And they go, and there's a place to be where we put on partial sports things that are old sports things or new sports things, or we run Scrabble and activities and crossword puzzles that are based on sports teams. And I've also had guys that I'll take to Little League games and to cheer a team on and to start to make friends with kids, and be able to throw the ball to them and have the kid try to hit it, the little kids. Yeah. And so all of a sudden it's opportunities. And I think men, particularly when they're trapped in a building, we forget how much cabin fever is a real thing, and having guys go out, and women too, for that matter, but getting out to feel the sun, to feel the wind, to feel the world. All you have to do is go outside for 5 minutes, and suddenly the whole world is different when you come back in.
I think I also like in the car wash goes back to a little bit to the who cares. I am imagining a scene where everyone's gotten wet.
Oh, they have. They were drenched. Yeah. Everybody was drenched. Everybody was wet. So it really didn't matter whether they'd peed on themselves because, frankly, everybody was, their brief was wet, but it gave us a reason to change clothes, which actually worked a whole lot better than trying to convince somebody that they needed to be changed when they didn't realize they did, because we were all wet.
And really, who cares if it's a mess? And I'm thinking when you're doing these things, and it's the same as when you're occupying
Yeah.
When people get involved in an activity, especially a creative activity, well, the paint goes everywhere and the clay goes everywhere and the water goes everywhere. And you have to give up on the neat and tidy for that activity.
Yeah, it's called living. So, I mean, I have guys also, other things that we'll do is I'll have them, watch me and help me take and replace a plug on a lamp. I'll have them, look at a machine that I've got part way apart and tell me how to take it apart the rest of the way. I'll have them help me sort some nuts and bolts because I got them all jabbered together. I'll take PVC pipe and I'll say, will you see if these pieces will fit together? The guy sold them to me. I don't know if they will or not. So, can you take them apart and put them back in the box for me? Because I got to have them ready for the next group. All of these things are things that can fill a day, but they also, when you do it right, it's like, done. Oh my gosh, thank you. That I wouldn't have gotten to that. You're amazing. Thank you. You are fantastic. I need a hug. Thanks, Guy. Thank you.
And none of the things that you have mentioned here cost very much. You can go buy that threaded PVC at Home Depot or Lowe's or, whatever the big box store is where you live and pull that together. For those of us who have a loved one who's in a memory care facility and you go in and you visit and you see that people are parked in front of the TV.
That is like one of the worst babysitters you could hire. What the data says is it just makes them drowsy and makes them drowse off. It's not even good quality sleep time because, you don't really sleep all that well, but you do drowse off and it actually deadens us to interaction because it's just sort of like white noise and background noise. So if we're going to have something on, I would much rather it be somebody leading music, or if we're going to watch something, look at that, dogs, look at those puppies. Oh my heavens, look at them. Oh, now that one, is that a Labrador Retriever or no, there's something else, a chocolate? Oh, which one is that, John? If we're going to use a TV screen, it should be a tool, not a babysitter. And I truly do believe that they should be outlawed as nothing but background noise. If we're going to use a visual tool or an auditory tool, it should be with purpose and value, not just thrown up there. It's a mistake.
It's a terrible mistake. And I wonder, I know what I did as I interfaced with the facilities where my mom was, and it sometimes effective and sometimes less effective. Mm-hmm. Any advice for people who the facility is not bringing you in to train their staff?
No. Yeah. So one of the things I'll sometimes do is, wow, that is really loud. I'm having a really hard time talking to my mom. Would you mind turning it down or off? I hate to be mean, but I'm having a really hard time. My mom's a little hard of hearing anyway, and that background is really making this hard. Oh, you know what? I wouldn't mind, since there are folks gathered here, I brought in some music. I wouldn't mind sharing it. Because I think sometimes what staff are, we said, I think early on, maybe staff don't get trained, or if I didn't, I need to say that. Staff as a rule do not get trained in anything other than body care and the rules. But they don't get trained much, if at all, in how to engage people, how to make life worth living on that moment when I'm not having to help you go to the restroom. How do I help you fill your day so we both have a better day together? So sometimes we can be that thing that they don't know how to do and role model what we want to see and hear.
I think that role modeling is very important. And for somebody who's going in to visit their loved one, once a week, once a month, whatever you can do, bringing in activities, sharing them, and modeling interactions is really, really maybe the most you could do, but it is a very effective thing if you've got for the professional caregiver's attention and they see what you're doing. And of course, you can always talk to the head of the unit or the executive,
you can. And sort of, one of the things I'll often start with, wow. So I noticed, and come with me, I want to show you something. Take a look at everybody and tell me how many folks you notice are actually seem to be watching the TV. Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm wondering if there's anything else we could do with this TV surface that might do something a little different, or if we need to look at something beside the TV. I'm looking at, you have 10 people here. Are any of them really? Yeah, it doesn't look like it, does it? They're more interested in what we're doing right now than the TV set. Wonder if we could do something with that. It's really helping them see what they're not noticing. Because it's amazing how blind to this people can become. It's sort of exposure therapy. I mean, they get so exposed to it that they no longer notice, I think, sometimes when you don't do it as often, when you look at it's like, ooh, ouch, there's nothing going on here. I mean, the TV's on, but nobody's here.
That is some good advice. And I am amazed that we haven't made this mandatory, training for people who take care of patients who have a dementia, training in other than the tasks of taking care of a person's body. Teepa, I wish we had more time to talk because families and professional caregivers have so much to learn from you. And I thank you for sharing with us. I hope that all of our listeners can see ways to enhance their relationships and their experiences caring for someone moving through the stages of Alzheimer's. It is a really tough road, but your methods bring some joy to it, and I think probably some comfort to the caregiver and the care receiver.
I hope so, because it's one of the reasons I do what I do, because I want it to be better on both sides. I don't want us to have victims to this disease. I want us to have people who unfortunately do get this and do care for people who have this condition, this dementia, but not destroy each other and not feel that there's nothing they know how to do, because we do need things to do that make a difference.
And you do, in my own experience, up until the very end, that person is there.
Absolutely.
That person and the essence of who they are is still in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So I want to thank our listeners for joining us for this episode of Torchlight's Elder Care Illuminated. And ask our listeners to take care of themselves. And Teepa, thank you so much for being with us.
My absolute pleasure. And thank you for doing all that you do for each other.
Thanks for listening to Elder Care Illuminated, a Torchlight Caregiving podcast. Find other episodes of Elder Care Illuminated on iTunes, Spreaker, and Podcast Go. If you're interested in bringing Torchlight Elder or any of Torchlight's other caregiving products to your workplace, please contact info@torchlight.care. That's info@torchlight.care.